because like I think hip hop isn't monolithic anymore. Like before, you had the hip hop purists, which is kind of like the background I come from. So like you had like, yo, if it's not boom bap, if it's not that, then like this isn't hip hop.
What's good, my people? It's Pastor Zen. This is my interview with a friend of mine. His name is Nyasha, and we're going to be talking about hip hop. So sit back, relax, lock in. Let's get it. Zen. What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Sonny, aka Pastor Zen, aka Tasso, aka whatever you want. I'm here with my boy Nyasha today. And if you don't know, now you know. This is another fellow MC from the motherland. He's somebody who is a wordsmith, somebody who is a bright young mind. Definitely somebody I want to keep in contact with as we move forward through this life, but somebody who's on fire for Christ, on fire for God, and he also is on fire for hip hop. And so I wanted to talk to him today a little bit about the history and maybe the future of hip hop. If you haven't seen, there's been a lot of rap beefs kind of percolating. And so my perspective on it was as somebody who's maybe a little bit more um uh I don't want to say braggadocious or pugnacious. Like I'm a little more head to head sometimes. I like to see the competition. Yeah, I somebody who, after Christ's own heart, it's like, hey yo, let's relax, y'all. What's going on, man? Let's talk it out. Can we talk it out? And so seeing his perspective kind of made me think, oh man, maybe I am being a bit extra. Let's chat about this. Let's see where you're coming from, where I'm coming from. And so I guess
Yeah.
first question, Yasha, is what is your perspective on hip hop in general? Like, what is its function? Is it something that's supposed to be a competitive sport, or is it something that's supposed to be more maybe restorative or healing in communities? So just give the people a general overview.
Yeah, I think, man, hip hop is such a tool. Like I remember reading this one quote, but they basically made the point that like, bro, hip hop is like the CNN of the ghetto. And then seeing hip hop is like a lifestyle because like in academic circles, they're like kind of four tenets to hip hop. There's MCing, DJing, breakdancing, and graffiti. So
Mhm.
like it's a whole movement, it's a whole culture, and I think it holds so much power. And like just looking in the history of it and everything, and seeing like, yo, starting off in the Bronx in the like late 1970s and like house parties and all of that, and like how it was used to spread awareness because like man, there was a whole lot going on in terms of like gentrification in the hood and like
Mm,
um just a
facts.
lack of jobs in a lot of
Yeah,
places. So
yeah.
yeah, sorry, mom, I'm on a call.
Hey, Ma.
Hi, how you doing?
Nice to meet you, Ma. I'm well, thank
Nice
you.
to meet you too. Cheers.
So
Cheers. I,
yeah, so that's my
I
mom.
love
Shout out, mom.
God, shout out, Mom. I love it. But yeah, you were
Yeah,
making some really good points, man. I think looking at the origin of the art form, a lot of it did have to do with, as you said, like bringing people together, whether it's the house party feel, whether it's just that idea of bringing that energy back, whether it's like, mixing different types of music and creating something new. It
yeah,
always did have that sense of camaraderie and community. And so I don't know when necessarily this competition aspect came in, but it does feel like it's a bit of a like whenever I see on the internet people talking about, oh, hip hop is a competitive sport, or this is part of hip hop, even Kendrick, talks about hip hop being like rap is war in some ways. And so your perspective is something where it's CNN of the hood. I like that. It almost makes me feel as and you're somebody who is from Africa as well. What country are you from again?
yeah. So born and raised in Zimbabwe. I'm a suburban kid though. I ain't
Zimbabwe.
gonna lie to you. I'm a
No,
suburban
but
kid.
yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like we have that, like it's still like our blood is from there, right? And so it's like there's this aspect of African heritage and history where you have a person called a griot who was like the community spokesperson in a way. They held the history of a community, especially in West African cultures. And so
Yeah,
in our modern iteration with hip hop, you have people like the DJs and the MCs who almost act in that same role where they hold the history and they transmit it to the people. But now some of those roles are taken up by, bad actors or people who may not be fully informed or people who are just more like, you know, and not to besmirch his name, but folks like a DJ Academics who is more like cultural commentator, but he's still in this role where he's disseminating the information of the culture. And so it's just this weird thing going on. I guess to kind of move forward a little bit too is kind of talking about what that looks like, I guess, off the back of that comment. What does authenticity in hip hop look like? Because it is a culture, as you said, that has those kind of four tenets or pillars that go into it, but it's also um, something that's real life. Like people live this real life every day, but sometimes it feels like it can be over commercialized or commodified. And so, how important is keeping it real, so to speak, in hip hop culture? And has that emphasis in your mind changed over time? How should artists today kind of balance that, like success with the credibility and the authenticity?
Yeah, I think, man, like it's such a great question because depending on who you ask, because like I think hip hop isn't monolithic anymore. Like before,
Mm.
you had the hip hop purists, which is kind of like the background I come from. So like you had like, yo, if it's not boom bap, if it's not that, then like this isn't hip hop. And then
Yeah,
you had like 2016 era where you had like Lil Pump and everyone, and it was like, nah, this is hip hop, and it's like trap drums and everything like that.
yeah,
So I think like authenticity is like, I think hip hop has certain unspoken rules. One of them is like you can't come in this thing and not know the history of hip hop, and you can't come into this thing and not be real. Like you'll get found out quick.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I can think of like flipping, what's his name? What's that guy's name? Takashi. Yeah. Like I don't know how many times people
Yeah,
that ran up on him, people have
yeah.
fake out now. Well, we've known, but like
But
because
that's
he's
the
just
thing. When you have characters like that, they almost fill these roles. When you have these, when the culture becomes less about genuity and being authentic about the lifestyle you're from and more about, playing a part, it you can devolve into some of these things where you have literal clowns who occupy spaces in the culture because they, are able to finagle their way in.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, authenticity's got to be up there, man. Because the way I see it, hip hop is one of the only art forms, if not the only art form, that is predominantly like it's creative and it's still music, but it's like when you look at the lyrics of like a Nas record, for example, that's almost like, proverbs, bro. Like that's almost like you have like as bar after bar after bar, whereas a hip hop song might have, 20 lines that get recycled here and there throughout the whole track. In hip
yeah,
hop, it's predominantly word based. And so you are in many ways putting yourself out there and people can just kind of see what's really going on in your heart and your mind and things of that nature. So I think that, yeah, as you said, it's got to be up there. I don't know if you have anything else to kind of speak on that because I mean, one of the things I mentioned was the artistry thing and how do you keep that real, but still be able to maintain, like, how do you still go for success in terms of what, the world sees as success, but still hold
yeah,
on to that identity, hold on to that reality of who you are and stay grounded in that.
yeah. Like before I answer that, like just heading back, you mentioned Nas and like being real and everything, and how it's kind of like structured like proverbs. Like it, hip hop is like, I think hip hop is prophetic in a lot of ways. Like if we look at what a prophet is, like a lot of people are like, oh, this is what a prophet is. He tells the future. Like in reality, a prophet is just someone who communicates God's truth to people,
Yeah.
plain and simple. In a lot of ways, that looks like speaking truth to power and speaking comfort to the marginalized. And if you look at like what I would term as like conscious hip hop, that's a lot of prophecy right there. Like
Ooh, that's a good point.
Nas, I grew up on Nas. Like I remember one song he had called "What Goes Around" from Stillmatic, and he was rapping about like this dude named Ike in prison. And he was like, he met the wrong chick and now he dead from the monster AIDS. I contemplate believing in karma. Those on top could just break and won't be eaten tomorrow. And I was like, ooh, boy,
Yeah.
that is like
Yeah.
Nas is just like artists like Nas. You look at it statistically, like there is a thin line. Like very few artists have been able to like remain authentic but actually commercialize. Because like I was reading a book about Jay-Z like last year, and he was like, yeah, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I kind of did go the commercial way because that's what the game required at the time. And like that was an avenue for me to sneak in my conscious messages. And like artists like, I don't know, Rakim or KRS-One or like even Lupe Fiasco, if you want to go there,
Mm.
or Big L, like those are artists that never really get celebrated in like commercial spheres because they didn't have those like major hits and that type of thing. And like I've always found it difficult because like as an artist myself, like I remember one conversation I had with like genuine hip hop head, like he knows his hip hop in and out, but he was kind of like, bro, some of your bars are going over people's heads. Like you need to tone it down a little if you want to like actually make it. And I was like, oh
It's like
no,
that
man.
Lupe song, that Dumb It Down track. It's like
Yeah.
you going over people's heads, Lou, dumb it down. And he's like, no, man. Yeah, I know what you mean. Something grinds on you, and when you grinds inside you, it's like, I don't know why. Why do we have
Yeah.
to do that? To make it more palatable. Like I think that's part of why there was that beef between Kendrick and Drake. Some people see Drake as the super commercial, everything watered down, super poppy type of
Yeah.
artist, and that doesn't really represent what hip hop is supposed to be about. And so, like, part of the problem people had with him is that yeah, you can do your melodies and you can do that. That's cool. But when you start coming into hip hop circles and acting as if you're an authority, that's when we have an issue because you need to,
Mm.
that's that whole stay over there, like stay with it. Like, and I think that Kendrick represented that, that West Coast, real grimy, like I'm not a
Yeah.
mixed kid who's half Jewish from Canada. I'm a real dude from Compton and I've seen how this thing plays out. And so I think that's why a lot of the energy that went into that beef kind of came about. Um, I did want to get one more thing back on the beef because I did want to know your opinion on this. Do you think that J. Cole made the right choice in retrospect? Because I think that a lot of people are starting to think he made the right choice.
Yeah. I would say this. I remember I said it first,
You said
and
it right
people
away.
were
I
like, nah.
remember.
People were coming at me. They're like,
Man,
nah,
I
Cole
was
is
so
weak. And I
mad.
was like, bro, y'all don't get it, man. Like, I think there are two reasons. Okay. My primary reason as to why Cole made a great decision was like, yo, man, like, as a follower of Jesus, like, I just believe that, like, yo, I don't know where Cole is at in his faith. He's spoken about like dibbling and dabbling in a few religions, that type of thing. But like to a watching world, as someone who carries this kind of like messiah complex in his music, like, yo, to see a black man in hip hop at the top of the game be like, yo, I'm apologizing. That is like, that gives me hope for hip hop because like we saw Mr. Morale in the Big Step as Kendrick was like, yo, I actually went through therapy. Like
Yeah.
I'm healing. So to see that and like just to see God's grace in that and being like, yo, this is what Jesus would have done. Like Jesus speaks about like blessed are the peacemakers because they're going to be
Preaching.
called children of God. So from that aspect, I was like, that's a stand-up guy right there. Respect Cole. And like second reason, like, man, if Cole wanted to go there, I think he can go toe to toe with Kendrick. And I was just like, man, to show that level of restraint and like being like, yo, this is my brother. Like, I just had a different level of respect for him because like I listened to 7 Minute Drill and I was like, I don't really think you believe the bars you're saying right now. That like Kendrick,
Yeah,
like
like the
I think
shade
he said
on
like
what was it, Good Kid Mess? Or no, he was throwing shade on To
to
Pimp
Pimp
a
a
Butterfly
Butterfly. Yeah,
Effect.
he
Yeah.
threw shade on that, and I was like, I don't know if you believe that, bro.
That's the thing about authenticity too, though. Like once you start saying stuff you don't really believe, it's easy to get caught out and you begin to have to double back. I'm like, hey, hold on a second. Like, maybe not.
Yeah. So I was just kind of like, I get it. Like I honor the move from Cole. Um, but like I think like in as much as Cole can go like bar for bar to an extent with Dot, man, Kendrick is a different like I always used to make this point, like Cole makes songs, like he makes deep, profound songs. Kendrick is like on a whole different sphere. He is making like cinematic like scenarios and
Yeah,
like
Yeah,
he's
he's making
like
different.
he's just a different
Making
stratosphere. And I held
masterpieces.
that opinion before this whole beef even started. So yeah, I think ultimately bar for bar, Kendrick ends up winning regardless of who he goes up against. Big Sean is apparently now sneak dissing again. Who knows, man? Who
Oh
knows?
man, is that what was that the off the radar freestyle? When did he sneak this? I got to go back and check that now because they
Yeah,
had
I
a
just
mini beef going on too. But anyway,
yeah,
his role in the game is always been kind of funny to me. But that's neither here nor there.
yeah,
I want to get into a little bit too, like as we semi round up. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're super busy these days, but man, it's good to be able to finally chat with you and just get this out. In terms of the global impact of hip hop, we are people who are, immigrants. Our parents are immigrants. We have families that are from all over the world, and hip hop started in the Bronx, started in New York, but it also became this almost, as you said, a tool for global consciousness. Like when you think about underground hip hop and that sort of conscious rap, that
yeah.
has been replicated in boroughs and communities and ghettos all over the world, whether in Latin America, even I see some like in South Korea, you got folks doing it. Like it's all over. And so, as a tool for whether it's restoring consciousness, restoring connections, like one of the missions of this organization I'm trying to start with some of my homies back in Nottingham called Collective is to bring hip hop back into the fray as a healing component versus a destructive one. And so how do you see it in terms of its global impact? What do you see in terms of how it's being used, whether it's from your country in Zimbabwe or folks that you know of, or whether it's just examples you've seen or just some theoretical things that you see could be potentially used by hip hop in terms of restoring the world and bringing people back into a place where they're able to speak truth and be comfortable doing it.
Yeah, man. Like that's such a really good point. Like I remember when I was in uni, like I was gonna do my dissertation on hip hop and like Orientalism and like all of that.
Mm,
Uh, so like I did a lot of research into it and like just looking at it, like man, the global impact that hip hop is able to have in terms of like, yo, as you said, we've got dudes in the boroughs of South Korea and like I don't know if you know D1. He's in
yeah.
Zimbabwe right now. He's
Oh,
like
really?
to some rappers that I know,
Wow.
like dudes that I'm supposed to collaborate on music with. Like
Oh, that's crazy.
he's in
We got
right
to collab
now.
eventually too, by the way. Right now, I'm still
Oh,
kind of
for
going through
sure.
I'm going through the rounds of making sure. Like, I think part of my artistry and my thesis is that I'm actually, maybe this is off camera conversation. We'll talk about this later. But I definitely have a very specific goal in mind with my music and with my art. And I think it can sometimes be misconstrued, but I do want to make sure I'm staying grounded in folks that I know are steadfast by the word so that I'm not straying in any way, shape, or form. But that's neither here nor there. You could continue with that story because I think that was really good.
Yeah. So like D1 is like using hip hop as like a platform to be like spreading positive change and stuff like that. And like I think it's a healing component, like in so
Mm,
many ways. Like I think about songs like Brackets or Friend or like even KOD, the album by J. Cole. Like,
mm,
oh, that was a cultural moment in hip hop. Like
mm.
everyone was rapping about Xannies and like Lean and Molly and
Yeah,
Cole. One of the big three comes in and he's like, yo, I know,
relax.
but if you're down to try it, I know of a better way. Meditating. Like that is impactful to dudes who like haven't found another outlet and like even from a
Yeah,
faith aspect, like obviously we're trying to give them solutions to like their physical problems, but like on a spiritual level too. Like I remember
that's where it comes from.
I grew up going to church and like I would always fall asleep in church, but like I remember when I'd listen to DMX records, he had this song called Angel. Bro, that stuff used to floor me because I was like, yo, you're
Mm,
speaking my language. Like I feel like God is actually real because he's speaking through someone like I can relate to in that regard. So like
man,
there's just so many like
that's
components,
beautiful.
which is why it breaks my heart where you have preachers who say hip hop and even Christian hip hop is the devil's work. I'm
Mm.
like, bro, For
Yeah,
real?
I went to a Christian school, man, and one of the things that I wanted to study, I did like I was a communications major, so one of the classes I was taking was on literature. And I asked my professor one day, hey, will you ever study like maybe, I even phrased it this way so that I wouldn't be offended. I was like, like more urban poetry? Like I was gonna like something that's like a little like this because we're studying all these like, these white dudes from hundreds of years ago, and I like, it's good to have their perspectives, but I feel like, there's some and the way that she just chuckled that and just said no, I was like, I was half like I shouldn't have been surprised looking back on it, but I was still taken aback. Like in 50 years, maybe not even then, people are gonna be holding Walt Whitman in the same regards as they would a Tupac Shakur. Like it's not a thing that is crazy to think about. And if you are somebody who's teaching folks, you should be aware of the impact of this form of poetry. Like that's really what I see hip hop is. It's another form. It's a form of street poetry that condenses what is happening and exports it in a way that is somehow understandable by the masses. But when you have folks who are so bent on saying that this is trash or this isn't music or I don't even want to like hip hop culture usually front runs the general population by about 20 years. This is my theory. Like when you have
Yeah.
people like, when you have folks saying F the police, and then that becomes like a mantra for a whole entire, community. And then you have 20 years later, folks saying, actually, maybe these police aren't really on our side. It's like, yeah, that's what we was trying to tell you. But it's like
Yeah.
you saw us as like these bad folks who deserved what we were getting. And now that it's on the other end, it's like, oh, wait a second, maybe the government isn't all great. Like, yeah, I know, but it's like the thing is hip hop, when it is used constructively and when it is, I guess I'd say I'll use a Christian term, stewarded well, that's when I
Mm,
think it could have the most impact because when we're just kind of willy-nilly using it for whatever the purposes of the day is or whatever our desires are, fleshly or otherwise, that's when it can become a thing that's actually deadening our spirits instead of
mm,
bringing us back to life and bringing us back to a place where this is, prophetic communication. This is something that is more on par with what, John the Baptist was doing, spitting, telling folks, hey, yo, the king is coming. Nowadays, it's
yeah.
like you got a lot of folks that's maybe, despondent. You even have genres of rap that are built off of like that whole mumble rap era in many ways is built off of just this depressive type of woe is me, giving up on everything type of and I'm not trying to dog it. That's the thing. I understand where it comes from. But when that becomes the dominant message, what are we leaving for the kids? What are we leaving for those after us? And so that's where I think that this is a really important conversation to have. Last question, and I'm gonna leave you with this one. Thank you once again, Nyasha, for hopping on with me today. Um,
Pleasure.
what do you think is the future of hip hop? Like we kind of talked a little bit about the past. We talked about what's going on now. How do you see this sort of evolving as we move forward? Is this going to be a truly global phenomenon where people are going to be able to, you know, you see everyone on Instagram like us doing a few freestyles every once in a while just to get something off their chest, or is it going to kind of die down? Maybe I don't know. Like, where do you see this going?
Man, okay, as long as the infrastructure remains Western, like all the dudes that are popping, like we're gonna get fed like that. You
Mhm.
studied like media and journalism, you know these things.
Yeah,
You know how the game goes.
yeah,
But there is some talent out there, bro. Like I'm gonna give some shout outs to some dudes that I know.
please.
Obviously, you are you're crazy on the mic. I just saw your little pen practice
Oh,
that you
thank
posted on
you.
Instagram. That was crazy. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I love, bro. I
Uh,
appreciate that. Yeah.
but shout out my guy Ray Kaz from Zim,
Okay. Ray
bro,
Kaz from Zimbabwe. Okay, I gotta check that guy out.
bro. I'm a,
Oh
okay.
yeah?
I'm gonna leave you with this. Go listen to the main on tape. I'll send you the link
Okay.
and let me know what you think. Bro's bars are crazy.
All right, bet.
Um, but I think oh, shout out Kane Keed as well. I'll send you a link to his stuff. He got a co-sign from
Please.
like Pusha T in the game. He's based in South Africa though. So like
Okay.
it's going somewhere, but like as long as the infrastructure remains westernized, like obviously with social media and that, like yeah, you're able to reach a lot of people, TikTok and all of that, but like there's I, there's been talent like
Yeah.
outside the US and the
Yeah.
UK for time. Like South
Yeah.
African hip hop has been popping off for a minute. Um, but yeah, I think it's a thing of like
We
infrastructure.
just got to move the almost like the gravity of the cultural
Yeah,
infrastructure toward, the center, maybe a little bit more.
exactly. Because it's kind of like hoops. Like obviously it all started in America, and like
Yeah.
US, we know what's gonna happen at the Olympics. LeBron's just gonna dunk on there. We know, but
Right,
like
right.
the rest of the world is catching up slowly. Like you've got flipping Giannis and Jokic and all of these dudes, and it's
Yeah,
like,
for
okay,
sure.
we're getting somewhere. Not quite on that level, but like we're getting somewhere. So like I think it's
Yeah,
the same thing with hip hop. Like
yeah.
some there's some dogs out there these days, bro.
Yeah, it's a lot of talent, man. I sometimes forget how talented folks are because you just any given day you'll be scrolling on internet and you'll just see something crazy and you're like, man, that person must have a record deal and must be out here popping. And you look and it's like 400 followers or something, and you're like, what? Or like, a couple thousand. It's like what? It's like the way that there's such this imbalance between being recognized, and that's why I always tell people just keep going, bro. Especially when it's like the way that the thing is set up today is just sometimes just it is quality and quantity. Like it's part of it is just putting out stuff and just getting in front of eyes because the talent is there. And I really feel like once we get to a place where we graduate as a species past this era of strict competition and more towards an era of collaboration and just cooperation, I
Big
feel like
one.
things will begin to move very, very quickly where we can see somebody and give them their flowers immediately without thinking of if this is going to come back and hurt me because ultimately we're growing the pie for everybody. We're just trying to make love the dominant theme. And so I think that's probably a good place to end the conversation today. Zoom is just popping up with a message saying that it's going to end in 10 minutes as well. So let me go ahead and begin to close off this one. Once again, it's my boy Nyasha. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Sonny, aka Pastor Zan. I'm not sure what I'm calling this podcast episode, but we'll figure it out on the backside.
Yes, sir.
Anything else you want to tell the people real quick before we get off today?
First, before I even get into anything, man, shout out Pastor Zen. Like,
Oh,
yo,
bless.
this is my guy. We met like a couple of months ago. Just kicked it off. And like we both studied journalism and we both rap. Like it was crazy.
It
Um,
was. It was like a
so
wild
yeah,
time. It was like, wait a second,
yeah.
what? Yeah, me too.
So shout out him, man. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Hip hop and hoops are similar in another regard in the sense that like now with basketball, like in the NBA, you've got LeBron, Steph, and KD, and all of these guys still dominating at like age 35, 36, 37. And
Hmm.
you've still got the big three in hip hop, Kendrick, J. Cole, Drake. And it's like,
That's an interesting way to think
maybe,
about it.
yeah, maybe hip hop is getting older. Cause you look at like the young dudes, like I
Yeah.
can't really see anyone carrying hip hop
No, a
apart
lot of the
from
younger dudes feel more trendy to me. Like it's the older dudes that have had that staying power. And I almost feel like
yeah.
that's a good thing for the future. To maybe end on this too, the future of hip hop being in a way, like people always have a negative association with the term gatekeeping, and I understand why. But when something is like, even scripture talks about the gatekeepers, like the people that were literally watching the different places when Israel was rebuilding. Like we have to have people that are filtering what's happening on the
Mm,
outside versus the inside. And when you have gatekeepers that are not a part of the culture, that's when you have things like that happen today where you have folks, and I'm not going to name names, but you have this degenerate stuff that's being pushed to the youth. But I
yeah.
think when you have gatekeepers who are genuinely in love, not just with the art form, but with the people, then you begin to see a different type of music, a different type of culture that is being cultivated. And I think that's what the battle over is over right now is commercial versus cultural. And I think that's part of a proxy of the whole Kendrick Drake thing. And that's part of why I was like, yeah, come on, Kendrick, not because, but at the same time, you got to understand that we are supposed to be, as you said, those lights that are able to see and not become so encapsulated. Like, what does it say? Romans 12, to be not conformed to the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. It's like sometimes I want to you know, conform a little bit because it makes it more simple. But the reality is we got to know that we're set apart. And
Yeah.
whether it's lyrically, spiritually, or otherwise, we're going to keep doing our thing. So once again, blessings to everybody who watched, made it all the way through. Like and subscribe. You heard the man. And I'll see y'all on the other side. Peace.
Yes, sir.
No one above you but God and the family. I can't really front, dude. My mind is insanity. Keep it all a buck while I take it out the truck. Let the scripture uppercut, then I shoot until it's stuck. I don't think I'm better, I just know I'm really me. When the liars try to check, I smack them back to NSC. I don't care about your titles or these social referees. Far as I'm concerned, I do it like that boy from TDE. The boys